All right, here's the setup. And it's going to sound pretty cool, and I think most of you are going to like the idea, but I just want you to think it all the way through. It's a brilliant branding idea for everyone involved. It is a surefire ratings home run, and it might really be a dumb idea. In fact, I'm probably going to say it's a really dumb idea. It can be all of those things. I'm pretty sure all of them can be true. So follow this and you decide for yourself if you were an NFL star, if you were an owner, if you were a general manager, if you were an agent, anybody connected to the sport, just ask yourself, what would you do and what would you think is the right move going forward? NBC, which has had the Olympic Games for decades now, has spent billions on the Olympics. And their job, their mission is pretty clear. Their job is to use the Olympics to generate eyeballs that advertisers want. That's the formula. It's really a simple formula. To do that, and I think they've proven pretty successful, NBC has figured out the best way to get Americans to watch is to create feel-good vignettes, stories, drama, right? Love, feelings, more drama. Feel-good stories drive female viewership. And remember, if you say, Jeff, I don't know about that at all. Yes. Okay, well, why don't you check out the ads? Because advertisements are the science of media. That's it. That's the science. Because the ads will tell you who is watching, who is listening, or who is downloading. And the Olympics are about minivans, selling minivans, baking products, antidepressants, and mobile plans. And I bet those categories are the largest. You're not going to see ads for trucks, Blue Chew, or video games. You just don't. The audience is not there. So is there a way to fix that? The answer is yeah, probably so. Here's the mix. Star power, big names drive viewership. And NBC would love to have stars and would love to have anything that could get guys to watch. It's hard to get guys to watch mainstream broadcast television. I don't need to tell you where else they're looking, but they're not there. The NFL, okay, so the NBC part of this, the media part of this it makes perfect sense. The NFL wants to be a global brand. As much as you laugh at it or say, don't play there, don't do that stuff, that's not the way they see it. They want a bigger audience. They want a bigger audience to watch worldwide, and they want to sell stuff around the globe. Other leagues have done it. The NBA is doing it, and the NFL wants to do exactly what the NBA is doing. You can decide if you think this is the right way to go about it, but that's their goal. Their stated goal, in fact, I didn't know this until the last 24 hours. The NFL is 32 owners. That's who makes up the NFL, okay? They decide everything. They're rich, and they say they would like to get richer. I mean, at some level, you kind of have to applaud them. You know, for a bunch of old guys with a ton of money already, you would say enough already, but they don't. They're always looking to grow and sell more. They're always looking to tinker with the product. I will say I brag about NFL owners in this way all the time. You know what NFL owners care about and only care about? Viewers. You're going to get whatever you want. They know exactly what business they're in. Then you've got agents, for example, and you would want to do this too if you were an agent. An agent would love to expose their clients, star players, to a global audience. Bigger the reach, the bigger the ads. The bigger the reach, the bigger the sponsorship deals. It all makes perfect sense. So selfishly, the mix all makes perfect sense. Everybody can make a lot more money. Everybody can scratch each other's back by making the sport a much more global sport. And they think they now know how to do it. And I think I said it months ago when this first came up and we all laughed about it and joked about it. I said, watch out here. There's enough interest in this. They know exactly what they're going to do. And I'm not going to be shocked if this doesn't happen. And I think increasingly it's becoming obvious it's going to happen. And it's going to be pretty entertaining. It's still stupid. They're going to sell flag football. I said flag football. Flag football is being launched in the LA Games, the Olympics. The reason why, obviously, look, you don't care about sport. You don't care about the hammer throw. You don't care about the discus. You don't care about any of that stuff. You want stars and feelings. And this is it. Everybody accomplishes what they want. You think it's an accident that flag football is being introduced at the LA games? You think that's just, oh my gosh, there's such demand for flag football. No, NBC. Look, the Olympics have been turned into the X Games anyway for viewers and advertising. So why not do it this way? And the NFL owners, surprisingly backed by a really old guy, never thought he'd be involved in this, but he is. So now it all comes together, right? The games are about feelings and not about sports. You want drama, you want stars. The marriage between the NFL players and the Olympic flag gives NBC star power and a few guys watching. I want to say this. If I were an NFL general manager, I'd fight this all I could, but I'll likely lose. Because in the end, they are going to do what they want to do. And I think there's going to be enough star NFL players that say, that'll be cool. And there's probably, and you can see the other side, there's probably enough agents saying, you bet, Patrick. I mean, can you imagine your reach? You win a gold medal and people get to watch you play. They never watched you play before. I mean, yeah, you could see the business to all this. So here we go. Is the upside to all of this, all the promotional parts, the financial home run, all that stuff, is it worth the risk? And I don't even know if you say yes. I don't think it's going to matter. But just for conversation's sake, is it worth the risk? And don't dismiss that. You'll never guess whose idea this was. Reportedly, it was Jerry Jones's idea. And he and his cartel buddies that own the NFL have followed what the NBA has done. And Jones and others have wanted to grow the brand. They want it to be more like the NBA. They want it to be more like the Premier League, English Premier League, and they're jealous. So now guess what? Not shocking. We have flag football. And started with a conversation with Jerry Jones, who said he wanted more kids around the world playing football. Interesting story in Yahoo Sports because I think it's going to happen. What Jerry Jones was getting at was a singular idea that has long created the wall between true global interest, getting people interested in the game itself or some version of it, rather than getting people interested specifically in the NFL. I don't know that he's wrong, right? You got to get people winning. As he said in this interview, you want people around the world throwing a football around. We can start there. And he's probably not wrong. The way to sell it is with stars. We are a country of stars. We're not of substance. We like stars. Here's the marriage. It says, enter flag football on the grand stage of the 2028 Olympic Games in Los Angeles. It's arguably the best answer the NFL has ever had to motivate the entire world to pick up football, especially if some of the people picking up a football for their country also happen to be NFL players. That's what's at stake during this week's NFL spring meetings when club owners will consider a proposal. Ready? I had a feeling when I first heard this, I had a feeling they'd end up doing it, and you're going to like it. It's going to be entertaining as heck, and I think it's going to be crazy. Here's the proposal. Would allow league players to try out for flag football teams in the 2028 Summer Games. If the proposal gains enough traction for a vote, this is among owners. Remember, owners decide everything. The commissioner works for the owners. Okay, they decide everything, and safety does not matter to them. Making money matters to them. They've got it pretty well thought out. 75% of the league owners, 24-32, would have to approve the measure. And right now, there appears to be some definitive support that goes beyond NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. He only does what they tell him. He works for them. They pay him. All right, here you go. This is a good of the game issue, maybe more than the good of the game team, one NFC team president tells Yahoo. But that's what the league has always been built on. It's a great opportunity around the Olympic Games and gives the NFL unprecedented growth as well as an amazing lead into training camp. Now, look, this is part of a bigger plan to play games worldwide, to get a franchise or 2 or 3 worldwide, to get more viewership worldwide, to get a TV contract worldwide. This is the entree to do that. Again, that's what they care about in the end. They do not care about safety. They care about growing the audience, makes more money. NBC is saying right on. Absolutely, we need it. Not a single guy ever watches the Olympics. We'd like to get a few guys to watch. It's perfect. Until someone gets hurt. But they think they figured that out too. Here you go. Here's an AFC team president tells Yahoo it's a smart way and honestly believe a carefully thought out way to finally be part of that global stage every 4 years. I get the injury concern, but every other major professional sport in America has been a part of the Olympics for 30 years or more. The NBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball have all been able to shoulder that risk. Now, the NFL can be part of it with moderately less risk than what happens on an NFL field. Here's the way it would work. The league would allow, this is flag football, okay? The league would allow one player on each NFL roster to try out for one country's Olympic team. You see what they're doing? It's pretty brilliant, except that tryout part, which kind of makes me laugh. That leaves the door open for multiple players on a single team to play in the Olympics if they are eligible for non-U.S. rosters. For example, one player could try out for the U.S. team while another could try out for the Canadian team if they meet ancestry requirements. And before you say, Jeff, what does that mean? I don't know. I bet you not much, because I think I figured out what they'd like to do. Have you followed this? You know what they're trying to do. They're trying to get more American stars in the entire games. So that means they may be playing for other countries. And the logic is, I know you're going to laugh. The logic is, well, if I can get Christian McCaffrey to play for the Swedes, people think that's kind of cool. There you go. So, is it going to happen? Yeah, I think so. But Jeff, yeah, I know. There's some issues here. Okay, well, here's one of the issues. Insurance coverage. Because surely you've thought about this. They have. These are not fools. They're not billionaires for no reason. So insurance coverage across the league to help protect players in the event of an injury. This would be anything Olympic related, anything flag football related. Guess what? Beyond that, you get a salary cap credit for any team that loses a player to a flag football related injury. Got it? In other words, if you lose Joe Burrow, you get credited back all the money. Huh? I had a feeling they were going to be serious about this. So I think it's on. It's going to be entertaining as heck. I think it is absolutely nuts. Oh, Jeff, but surely nothing's going to happen. Okay. So NBC has a story about this with the details. So what they're going to do, it sounds to me like, and I think they're going to decide this pretty soon. Okay, so each team can designate an NFL player for the American team. Other players can join other countries, and that way there would be more NFL players involved in the game. So in other words, you wouldn't have a team of, Mahomes throwing to CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase and Travis Kelce, or, you have just a loaded up team of stars and they beat everybody by 85 points and drink beer the whole time and just laugh it off. No. Other NFL players would be playing. They would just be playing on other countries. And I have no idea how that works, but I don't think anyone really cares. I think the goal is pretty clear here. If you can mix in as many NFL stars as you can, that's better for everybody. So, an NFL player covering CeeDee Lamb, even though CeeDee Lamb might play for the U.S. and the other guy's playing for Pakistan, which is interesting. Can't wait to see the coaching there. Then the NFL views that as better. And, of course, NBC says the more stars that are out there, the more you're going to watch. In fact, you might even watch an afternoon game between Pakistan featuring 5 NFL guys playing Sweden featuring 6 NFL guys. That's what they're trying to do. Basically, it sounds like they're trying to load up the Olympic Games and flag football with NFL big names. I told you, NBC, see, the thing about the owners, they know who pays them. They know how everyone gets rich, and so do the players. So it's in their best interest to keep the relationship going. And NBC probably said, hey, look, we got to get some guys to watch. We need some help here. We're running out of vignettes. We're running out of stories about minivans and soccer moms and all that stuff. We need some dudes to watch this stuff. NFL, according to Jerry Jones, who floated the idea a few years ago, says, well, here's a way to grow the brand. We'll just get people to want to play football. So what do you think? They think they've got everything covered. Would you do it? Would it work? Of course it'll work. You'd watch. I'd watch. We'd all watch. Would you watch more or less if it didn't involve other NFL players? In other words, the U.S. team is loaded up of megastars and they beat, everybody by 100 points. Would you still watch? The answer is yes. Would you watch more and be more entertained if they did it the way it's being proposed, and that is finding a way, some quirky, twisted way, to load up these other countries with NFL players as well? That way you would have, in a game, an afternoon, or, it'll be in prime time, an evening game, it would be a field of NFL players. And maybe one Swedish guy or something. I don't know. He might come on the field every now and then. Who knows? But you don't care. So, is it going to happen? Yeah, I think it probably is. NBC desperately wants it to happen, okay? Which means the owners want it to happen, which means the commissioner will do whatever they say. And I don't think they can force you to play. They wouldn't be that crazy, and it's not written contractually. So they can't force someone to play. But do you agree with the idea that flag football catching on means the NFL catches on? I'm not sure I buy that, but it's a nice try because they're thinking to themselves, we're making all the money we can. We're generating the biggest audiences we can. The Premier League does this. The NBA does this. We got to grow around the world. Here's the way to do it. I think it's nuts. Let me tell you why I think it's nuts. It'll be entertaining as heck. Everything they're saying will work the way they're saying. I mean, I think people will watch. I don't know if the rest of the world's going to care as much as we want them to think. But here's the issue I have. And it's really going to come down. You're really going to see a good test of greed because the players and their agents are going to look at this. And of course, they're going to have a conversation about injuries, right? So you've got owners, you've got media executives are all in. You've got players who might or might not be in, but the agents are saying might or might not be in. The general managers are going to be like me. I think this is crazy. Please, please, please don't do this, please. And the general manager is not going to matter. The question is going to be, do the players and their agents think they can grow their brand enough by playing in the Olympics, goofing around the Olympics, having fun with it, getting interviewed by NBC, doing all the feel-good stuff that you get with the Olympics. You get to be draped in a flag. Does that make their brand bigger? And if they think it does and they can make more money at it, I think they'll do it. How many players would say, man, it's not worth it. No thanks. I'm out. I don't know. Some, sure. And they won't force them to play. Here's the thing. First of all, I'm thrown off by the idea they're going to try out. Really? What do tryouts look like for Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes? Lamar Jackson needs to try out for someone, right? Against whom? If some guy from a rec league is going to try to beat him out, that's just stupid to me. And I'm sure an agent would say, listen, tell us when the games are. We're going to show up and we're going to wear a hat and, we'll play the part. But no, we're not trying out. My client's not going to Stockholm to try out for the team. We'll meet you in LA. He will play. He will do interviews, period. So that's just weird to me. I'd go to the mat to fight this if I were a coach or general manager. I'd be on the phone. I would be begging. I would say, please don't do this. And I'm curious about this. If you're an owner, growing the brand. Yeah, you get credited back. If somebody gets hurt, you get credited back that money, all that stuff. But I assume they can opt out. If I were a general manager, I would beg them to opt out. Okay? But some have already said they want to play. Patrick Mahomes has already said he'd like to play. Joe Burrow has said he would like to play. I'd beg them not to do it. Now you're going to argue, but come on, Jeff. If they were to get hurt, at least they get credited back the money. Chances are they likely don't get hurt. It can't be that bad. Right. Here's the thing. There's only one of them. Okay, so you can tell me all day if I'm a general manager, Mahomes or Burrow or Lamar Jackson, all three. We'll use them as examples. These are guys in the prime of their career. These are guys who are making all their money now, and sure, they want to grow, they want to get more. But if one of them were to get hurt, and you say, well, Jeff, you can get back to they're going to credit you back to $230 million. That's right. The problem is there's only one Lamar Jackson. Like, I can get the money back, which is nice. I'm sorry, how am I going to replace him? Who's going to do that? Cooper Rush? There's NFL stars, which are the 0.01%. Then there's Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes that are 0.0001%. Money is not going to replace them. And here's the thing. And I know a career-ending injury is not likely. I get it. But here's the problem. It bumps right up against the NFL season. So, the Olympic Games would go right into, or training camp at least, would go right into training camp. So let's say Burrow falls on a shoulder. He's out 6 weeks. He's a guy that's been hurt a lot. You know what life is like for the Bengals without Joe Burrow? It's not very good. It's really bad. Life for the Ravens, who are probably a Super Bowl favorite. I would pick them now. Forget it. All bets are off if Lamar Jackson has a bad shoulder and misses the first 3 weeks. That can be a season killer. Forget losing a guy for a career. These are guys with teams whose windows are pretty small. Now, I know you can't, if they want to play, they'll play. And you're not going to tell Mahomes, if you play, you're not coming back. You can't do that. But this could end, even if it's one star player, that sucks the life out of that franchise. If they miss part of the season, that team pays a huge price because you can't replace them. I think it's going to happen. I think it's entertaining as heck. I think it's going to be goofy as heck. I think the idea of them trying out is just laughable to me. And I get that more than likely they don't get hurt. But the off chance that a guy gets hurt badly enough, to me, would be an absolute deal breaker.